a podcast about amazing people from an incredible state. Join Mike Broomhead for Amazing Arizonans, presented by Resolution Copper. Copper is essential to Arizona's economy and to America's future. Learn more at resolutioncopper.com.
Another episode of Amazing Arizonans. This story is going to be a little bit different, but it's one I can't wait to tell and I can't wait to hear. Ted Geisler is joining us. He is the CEO of APS.
Yes.
Well, Pinnacle West, but I mean...
Yeah, APS Pinnacle West. Pinnacle West is just the holding company, but really my main focus every day is through APS serving the customers of our state.
Yeah, so this is, I want to talk the business stuff, but I also want to learn more about you. You have such an interesting story, and we have similar passions, I would say. Yours is horses, mine was the rodeo business. So I want to go down a lot of these roads, but I want to start with the company. I was an electrician, so I've gotten to work with your company a lot on job sites. How proud are you of the reliability that we have in a state that's growing as fast as Arizona? I know it sounds silly, but Texas is a rival state with our economies. They don't have the reliability in their grid, not to dump on them, but to say it's reliable here.
No, you're spot on, Mike. I couldn't be more proud, and for two reasons. One, because we recognize through APS that our ability to ensure we operate and maintain a reliable grid has a direct impact on not only the safety, health, and well-being of the community, but our ability to track growth. One of the quickest ways to stop economic development and growth in our state is to put the electric grid at risk and give people a reason to question, can they live in one of the hottest climates on earth in a safe and healthy manner? And that only happens with a reliable grid and people being able to depend on power and electricity to keep air conditioning on. And so we have top decile reliability. That means we're in the top 10% across the country for the last decade in terms of fewest outages. And when we do have an outage, we respond immediately and we hold our team and our employees and myself highly accountable for that. The second reason I'm proud is it doesn't happen by accident. There are hardworking women and men at APS that I have the privilege of working for that leave their families, wake up early, come home late, oftentimes risk their lives, quite frankly, to ensure that our customers have the reliability that they need. And my hat's off to them. They deserve a ton of credit. I grew up in this business with them, and I just couldn't be more proud.
And on the business side of it, as a customer, because I'm an APS customer.
Thank you.
Well, I don't have a choice.
Yeah. Well, it's still.
I'm joking. But
we're grateful for your business.
Listen, I enjoy it. Coming from that background, knowing that things happen, but the response, people that don't live in Arizona don't understand the safety issue of the heat here and how quickly, if there's a power outage, it becomes a life-threatening situation. So while I'm in my house or someone's in their home and they're worried about the heat, you've got people out there in that heat making a repair. I don't think, unless you're in the construction world like I was, you understand what it's like to now be in that work environment, wearing safety equipment, and you're in the environment, but they're making sure people have what they need.
Yeah, you're spot on, and obviously you understand this, Mike, but our folks really go through a lot to ensure that they're ready to respond to an outage. A lot of people don't realize our most common cause of outage is actually cars hitting poles or cars hitting equipment on the side of the road. Mm-hmm. And so these aren't things you can necessarily plan or predict. And we got to stand at the ready to be able to respond in a quick manner to get our customers back up and running. If it's a homeowner, we want to make sure you're able to get back in air conditioning quickly. If it's a business, we want to make sure you can plan the rest of your day. Think about a mom or pop restaurant. They have the power go out. They may not know, do we cancel the reservations? Do we send our staff? Do we keep everyone here? When's the power going to get back? We hold that accountability personal, and we know that people are depending on us to get it back up and running. But I'll tell you, Mike, one other thing. It's not just the people and equipment in the moment. Reliability for our grid actually starts years back. Right now, we're making decisions and investing in infrastructure that's going to secure reliability for Arizona into the 2030s. And so that planning responsibility that we have is so important. And when our customers go into a room and flip the switch, we're proud that they don't have to worry about what happens behind the scenes. But in order to make that happen reliably on the hottest days of the summer, that work actually started oftentimes 10 to 15 years before to ensure that we were planning ahead of time to get the right infrastructure in place to keep up with growth and make sure we had a sufficient reserve margin to accommodate a wide variety of circumstances so our customers never have to worry.
There's a balance, though, because I know that, and I was very impressed that you were willing to do this, because most people in your position, when you're talking to the Corporation Commission about a rate hike, the necessity of a rate hike, balancing customer service with cost, you were very transparent. You actually came on the radio station and you talked with our Arizona's Morning News about a rate hike, where a lot of people would say, just let the dust settle, we'll deal with what we have to. What's the mindset behind that and the balance?
I really believe strongly in our identity as a public service corporation. No two ways about it, we're a for-profit company, but that means we have to go to the capital markets, borrow capital to invest back into Arizona infrastructure in order to build out the grid to serve our customers. So all of our profit is just simply there to pay back those that we're borrowing capital from. But in the end of the day, we're a public service corporation. We're here to serve the public. And as a result, we should be very transparent about how we're thinking about serving Arizonans, how we're ensuring that we are keeping up with growth in a reliable manner. And our customers deserve to know how we're thinking about the future. And so when it comes to a rate hike or a rate increase, we recognize that there's never a good time to raise prices. And when we do, it's because we feel that's what's necessary at that time to ensure that we remain financially healthy to be able to continue to borrow money to invest in infrastructure. And we should be incredibly transparent with our customers about what that's about, what's driving it.
But you do know that's not the norm. That, you know, the old adage is, if you've done nothing wrong, you have no reason to defend yourself, and if you've done something wrong, you have no right to defend yourself. So just be quiet, let the dust settle. But you were actually proactive. Where does that mindset for you come? Is it something personal with you? Did someone teach you that? Where did that come from?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking. I do think it's personal, and I also think it's the character and principle that I not only embody for myself, but I expect of our entire team. We owe it to our customers to be very transparent and upfront. We want to be customer-centric and service-oriented, and I mean that. That's not just a marketing slogan. You know, one of my mentors early in life, who actually was responsible for getting me into the utility business, he used to run Palo Verde. He was one of the first chief nuclear officers we had. And I remember at the time when Palo Verde was first starting up, they had some issues, which is normal when you're first commissioning a large nuclear plant. And he took an approach that no one had done in the industry at the time. He said, invite the media out. Let them come out. Let them inside the operation. Let them see the challenges we're dealing with. Let them help tell the story, and let's educate the public on what we go through to try to serve reliable and affordable electricity. And I looked up to him for that. And I remember thinking, that makes so much sense. We have nothing to hide. If we're truly proud of what we do every day, we should share it and we should show it. And I consider that to be our responsibility today. We have nothing to hide. We have a great story. We are incredibly dedicated to serving Arizona, and our customers deserve to feel fully informed on everything we do.
It's funny. I want to talk about Palo Verde specifically in a minute, but I moved here 30 years ago, February of 95. And watched and was a part of this immense growth that we've happened in areas that you never, at the time, would have never expected. The expanse of the East Valley has been mind-blowing to me. As a matter of fact, I look back at times when I would work out in the East Valley, and I was going out to feedlots and farms and working and thinking, who would ever live out here? And now you think Gilbert and this immense growth and the industry, TSMC, and you see this massive growth of industry. How is it for you that you're able to keep up with that demand and at the same time keep things affordable? I mean, how does that balance for you?
Yeah, I think it comes down to two principles for us. One is the importance we place on that long-term planning. And then two, ensuring that when we procure infrastructure, new power plants, new transmission lines, we follow our principles, which is reliability first at the lowest cost manner possible. And it's really as simple as that. And so on the planning side, we are always staying ahead of the growth.
Right.
And it's important for us to continue to do that because we don't ever want to put reliability at risk for our customers. And that's one of the biggest differences, quite frankly, between Arizona and Texas. Almost every week, you can find a new article or publication about the scarcity of the Texas power market and how there's a lot of demand coming in, but there isn't as much power supply for the future. And are they going to wake up one summer and have a similar instance that they had with Winter Storm Uri, where you run out of power? Look, I hold myself and our team accountable for ensuring that never happens to Arizona. And I think our track record shows that we're doing a good job of that planning. But it also comes down to ensuring that when we procure new infrastructure, we do it the Arizona way, which is hold a high standard for reliability, but do it at the most affordable manner possible. There's states around us that have different priorities. Maybe the priority is decarbonization first and then reliability second. Maybe the priority is having a particular focus on a specific technology and then solving reliability around that. We think about it differently. We want to get the highest level of reliability for our customers at the lowest cost possible. And we think that's important because in the state that we live in, people end up spending a meaningful amount of their monthly budget on electricity due to air conditioning. We owe it to them to ensure that we keep that as affordable as possible. Last thing I'll say, Mike, is I tied back to economic development before, and I really mean that personally. I can't tell you how many stories we hear from businesses that look to locate here and compare us to other states. And we get feedback at the end that says one of the main reasons we chose Arizona is because of the reliability and affordability of the grid. Years back when the State Farm Complex was first built along the 202 there in Tempe Town Lake, they were looking for a new spot for their Western Regional headquarters. And when they picked Tempe, they gave us feedback that says, out of all the locations we narrowed down the search to, you were the only utility that had planned well enough to have the infrastructure in place to allow us to be able to build our construction schedule as we desired. And that's why we chose here. TSMC is another great example. They were getting pressure actually from some of their clients to say, why don't you look at Texas? And they did. They looked at Texas. The CEO of TSMC gave me personal feedback here not that long ago that said, we want to let you know that when we compared the grid reliability and affordability, we made that case to our customer and said, this is why we chose Phoenix and we want to stay, and the customers supported it. I love that. I couldn't be more proud of that. And as a hometown utility that only does business in Arizona, that's exactly what we should be doing.
When I want to shift to Palo Verde, and I don't want to drag you into a political conversation, but you have to deal with the politics of it as well. You deal with the Corporation Commission. There's legislation that's going on. But recently, the Senate president is talking about smaller nuclear power plants. I have been an advocate for this. If you are someone that wants, and if I'm wrong, please correct me, but if you want reliable energy, if you want clean energy, I don't think you can build the two and not do it the best if it isn't nuclear power. Isn't that the cleanest and most reliable power that's available? And if it is, why do we not utilize that more across the country?
Yeah, we believe nuclear has the ability to hit the trifecta, which is top-tier reliability, long-term affordability, and of course, it's carbon-free. We are so blessed to have one of the largest nuclear plants in the country right here outside of Phoenix, Palo Verde. It is one of the best operating plants, and our entire community benefits from it every day. And so then the question is, why don't we do more? Our company is bullish on the opportunity for building new nuclear for Arizona. And we've actually dedicated a task force in partnership with Salt River Project and Tucson Electric to start to explore new sites around the state for new nuclear and what new technology may be right to be able to build in the future. I'm just always quick to caution and be upfront that nuclear takes a long time to build. Some would argue too long. And so even though we're taking this seriously and we think it's going to be a part of our energy future, that even if you started now, shovels in the ground, you're likely looking at 10 to 15 years before new reactors come online. But again, we're in the planning business and we have to think that far. So we're starting now to plan for the future. I think Senator Peterson's bill makes a ton of sense in the fact that we want to try to streamline the process to get new nuclear built. So from that aspect, I support it. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission has a role. If there's unnecessary regulation in that role, let's figure out a way to get rid of it. If there's regulation that's focused on nuclear safety, of course we want to continue to support that because we need to ensure that nuclear remains a safe and reliable technology for the future.
When you look at and I looked at the numbers, and maybe I'm remembering them wrong, isn't it something like 27% of the electricity that's produced in Arizona comes out of Palo Verde? I mean, it's a significant amount, correct?
Yeah, for APS, it's typically about 25 to 28% each year is going to be Palo Verde nuclear. Now, of course, over time and every year that changes and evolves. 70% of all the carbon-free energy in the desert Southwest comes from Palo Verde. It's significant. And the best part is all the water used at Palo Verde is recycled wastewater, which is a terrific sustainability story.
Yeah, it's interesting. We talked about water sustainability on the show because everybody's talking about the Central Arizona Project and talking about the states, the western states. And if the other states in this basin did what Nevada and Arizona does with reclaiming water, the 1.4 gallons or whatever of feet of water could be conserved if all the states just did what we're doing.
That's right.
It's an incredible amount.
It is. And to think that Palo Verde was first built back in the mid-'70s, came online in the mid-'80s. I mean, the amount of vision and foresight that took, it's the only nuclear plant on Earth that is not on a body of water. And it was done by innovation. And I just think that, frankly, is a symbol for Arizona, is the grit and innovation it takes to have one of the largest cities in our country built within a desert, and to have it be powered by an innovative nuclear plant that is fed with recycled wastewater. Just terrific. Love that story.
The new product that we're talking about, though, these are smaller plants that will be built in places. Where's the thought of where those are going to be? Like, what is I'm not asking necessarily for specific locations, but what are the parameters of where these belong?
Yeah, the thought is that if you can reduce the size of nuclear reactors and build them more in the factory, less custom built in the field, then you have a chance to accelerate the construction schedule, standardize the designs, maybe even streamline permitting. It's sort of similar to how the gas generation business is today, where when you buy a gas generator from General Electric, let's say, the entire thing's built in a factory to standard design and specifications. It's literally trucked out or railed out on site, and you simply install several of them in a row. Well, the question is, why can't we do that with nuclear? So Palo Verde's 4,000 megawatts in total. It's huge, but it was almost entirely designed and built in the field. Small modular reactors is the new innovative design, which says maybe we take them instead of 4,000 megawatts down to about 300 megawatts apiece, design every one of them to a standardized spec, which means you're going to have fast-track permitting, and you put 10 of them in a row, and you truck them out on site and install them quicker. Now, that's the concept. The first are being built right now in our country up in Wyoming. There's some more being planned and built up in Ontario. So we're still early, but I think the concept has a lot of merit, and we're very optimistic about the potential to bring that same concept here to Arizona to power our future.
And what does that do to cost? Does it increase cost? Does it decrease cost?
In theory, over time, it should decrease cost because you've got faster construction, standardized design. The reality is, though, the first that are going to be built are going to cost more because you're sort of writing the instructions as you're building it. Once you have a trade force, a workforce that is skilled at manufacturing and installing these, then I think you'll see the cost decline pretty dramatically. You know, the last two reactors built in our country were put online the last few years, actually, in Georgia, Vogtle 3 and 4. And just between Vogtle 3 and Vogtle 4, there was a 25% reduction in cost simply because the trade group knew how to do it and could do it faster and minimize mistakes. I think you'll see that same efficiency, if not more, with the small modular reactors, the SMRs, but we got to get them built first. And you know, candidly, Mike, our view at APS is, as excited as we are about new nuclear, we don't want to be the first. We don't want to even be among the first group. We don't think it's appropriate for Arizonans to pay for that early adopter premium. And we also want to let the industry work out some of the kinks. And then after it gets commercialized, be in a position to really take advantage of it. Palo Verde was actually the last greenfield nuclear generating station built in our country. Came online in the mid-'80s. We benefited from it dramatically. The cost was lower than many others. It was built while incorporating all the best practices and lessons learned. Let's make the same thing happen with new nuclear and the SMRs.
When you, I want to talk a little bit more about you. Was it your goal to end up where you are? Or what was your plan when you were young? What did you want to do?
Yeah, well, this is always the point where people usually laugh at me because I actually, third generation Arizona native, and I grew up as a horse trainer. And I thought for a long time that's what I wanted to be. I love being in the saddle. And my mom, rightfully so, one day said, you know, you may want to think about getting a real job and finding a way to pay for those horses. And so I said, well, you're probably right. And I thought, well, the next best thing to being a horse trainer is to be a large animal vet, a horse vet. At the time, there were no large animal vet schools in Arizona, so Colorado State was the closest thing. I applied up there, was fortunate to get a scholarship to help pay for it, and went to CSU with the intent to be a large animal vet. And I did a bachelor's and master's program in it. I actually have a master's in equine reproductive physiology. And I was about ready to go into vet school. And I got to tell you, Mike, you know, I was sitting there thinking, well, boy, you make this commitment to go to vet school, you better be in it. You know, this is sort of it. You don't back out once you go through all that schooling. And I wasn't sure yet whether this is what I was meant to do in life. A friend of mine who I actually trained his horses for, He ran the nuclear plant here at Palo Verde and APS, and he was a phenomenal leader. I looked up to him tremendously. He's a mentor of mine. And I remember sitting on the bed of a pickup truck one day with him, and I was asking him, how do you know? How do you know if this is what you're meant to do right out of school? And he said, well, you don't. But if you're questioning it, maybe you ought to answer the question before you commit to vet school. And he said, vet school will always be there for you. Why don't you just go do something totally different? Test yourself for a year or two. And either two things will happen. You'll realize you're meant to go to vet school, or you'll realize there's more out there, and that'll answer your question. I said, well, that's a good idea. You have any suggestions? And he said, well, I work in the utility business. It's a pretty good business. I like it. Why don't you consider that? And so I took his advice. I went onto the job board of APS. They had entry-level positions at the time that was working construction and project coordination when we were building some of our new gas-fired generation out in the West Valley. This is late 90s, early 2000s, when the valley was really expanding. Got on at an entry-level position working out at our construction site near Palo Verde at one of our gas-fired plants. And the short answer is just fell in love with the company, our mission, the role that electricity plays empowering Arizona and our community. I can't describe it. When you find that you're working somewhere where you're just totally passionate about it and you show up every day because you believe in the mission, not because you're getting a paycheck, that's when I knew, okay, I had answered my question. That was 25 years ago, and I'm still here.
What was the job, the first one?
Yeah, so it was a project coordinator where I was responsible for miscellaneous construction projects. We were painting steel, we were digging holes, doing civil work. We were building gas-fired plants, so I got some of the sort of entry-level construction work, and it was a ton of fun. Learned a lot, and since then I've sort of bounced all around the company. Some folks say I can't keep a job. That's probably true, but
but it's when you do that and you fail up. Yeah. That's not a bad gig. I mean, you just start out working in a construction, and now you're running the place. And there's in all seriousness, there's got to be a level of respect that you have for the employees because you've been there, but they have for you because you've been there.
I appreciate that. I hope I've earned their respect, because if not, candidly, I don't deserve to be in the role. But I can tell you one thing, I respect them incredibly. I work for them.
Right.
And I really mean that. I've got a lot of relationships through the organization, people I care about deeply, people that just give so much to serve our customers and support our mission. And I show up every day for them, first and foremost for our team. Anything I can do to help support them being able to accomplish what they need to. And I've been fortunate. I've worked all throughout the company, mostly in operations, but a lot of different roles. So I truly understand our business from end to end. I understand where the risks exist, and I understand what we need to be focused on to serve our customers going forward. And the last thing I'll say, Mike, is a lot of people don't realize, 25 years ago, there were over 100 investor-owned utilities, electric utilities in the country. Now there's a little over 30. It's not that the grid went away. It's that most of these utilities consolidated over time. Even like Tucson Electric, as an example, great company, love the team there. But years back, they were bought out by a Canadian infrastructure fund. And I just think it's so important that we remain a single state utility where everything we do is guided by the people of Arizona and what's best for our state. And I think that's a pride point for us. There aren't many of us left. And so part of my goal is to make sure we're doing everything we can to remain an Arizona-focused utility, not get consolidated up like a lot of others have, and continue to support the tremendous people and growth of our state.
It's one of the things I learned about Arizona the first time I came out here in 1992. Again, with all due respect to Texas, you're either a Texan or you're not.
Yeah.
And they take great pride in that flag. But Arizona is exactly the same way. When I meet natives of Arizona, I say this on the air quite a bit. If you want to know who the real environmentalists are in our country, talk to the anglers and the hunters, talk to the ranchers and the farmers, the second and third generation Arizonans that take great pride in that Arizona flag, that take great pride in the state. To hear you talk about Arizona, there are very few places where you want to remain uniquely Arizona or uniquely your state. I grew up in Florida, which is very transient, and Arizona is as well. But Arizona has maintained its identity.
That's right.
And it's because I think of people with your attitude, and you're not unique in that. You know other natives in Arizona. Their life is maintaining Arizona.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's a pride point for us. And And again, I used the word grit earlier. That's the way I sort of think about it. Is it takes grit to be able to develop the communities that we have in Arizona, and I think that's a mindset that still stays with the culture of our state. I also just love the diversity in our state. That's one of my favorite parts about this job is I could be in Phoenix one day, Flagstaff another, Yuma another, Douglas, Bisbee the next. We serve all those areas, and each one is an individual community. Now, we all share in common the pride and grit to live here in Arizona, but it's really just an amazing amount of diversity throughout the beautiful state, and hard to find that anywhere else. I was telling someone the other day who wasn't from here some fun facts about Arizona. I said one of them I love is in the same day we're the only state where you could have the high temperature and the low temperature in the same state the same day. Usually it's Grand Canyon the low and Phoenix the high, and I said that's just an easy example to show how diverse we are.
I remember when I came here on vacation, and then it drove me to move here a few years later. It had only been in the desert. I'd only been in the valley. Yeah. My first trip to Flagstaff, and then the drive, we went to Sedona. Being blown away in the diversity. I love the White Mountains, too. Yes. That drive up through Heber and Overgard and heading into the White Mountains, the Ponderosa Pine Forest, to realize that just an hour before you were in the desert, and now you're someplace completely different. Yes. And in the wintertime, you drive an hour north, build a snowman, come back down the hill and play golf in the same day.
Just incredible. From a utility standpoint, most utilities compare themselves in terms of how much electricity they serve during their peak days. And when you do that for us, we're actually more on the small to medium size compared to a lot of others. But our service territory is actually the 5th largest in the country compared to all other investor-owned electric utilities. And part of that's just the vast space across Arizona and the diversity that we have. Funny little story, one of our first power plants was actually up on the Verde River system, Childs Irving hydro plant, and it was built not only to serve that area at the time, but also with the intent that then you build a transmission line from that area down in to serve the bustling West Valley, which was Buckeye at the time, and a lot of irrigation pump. Well, the transmission towers needed to build that transmission line between Childs Irving, Clarkdale, Cottonwood area, and Buckeye were ordered out of the Sears Roebuck catalog.
No.
Serious. And they were actually windmill towers that were converted into transmission towers. When it was built and put in service, it was the largest transmission line in the western United States. Again, just to show the diversity of our state. Another cool aspect of that is the midpoint between Buckeye and where this plant was right around the Rock Springs area today, Rock Springs Cafe. Well, the origination of Rock Springs Cafe was that was the wagon trail stop for our crews that were traveling from Phoenix up to the new hydro plant as they were building this transmission line and building the hydro plant, and they'd stop there at Rock Springs to water the horses and get food. One of our own employees, after the line was built, said, I think I'm going to retire from the company and make this a permanent campsite and general store, and he opened up what was called at the time Rock Springs Cafe and General Store.
Wow.
That's how Rock Springs came to be.
That's incredible. That's an incredible story. So you have to get criticism as well, because there are, not everyone, but there are many people that don't like all this growth. They love Arizona the way it was. And so you're a big part of the growth. I know that you champion for some of the growth in the industry that comes here. What's the balance for you growing up here and then watching the changes? Is it all good? Or is there some of it you look at and think, I kind of miss Camelback being a dirt road or whatever it was?
Yeah, it's a tough position. I mean, I really view this as our job is to be stewards of Arizona and make sure that we are supporting the growth in a responsible manner. And our way of doing that is to ensure reliable and affordable power. We got a lot of individual communities in the state. We see that some of those communities have different views on growth, and I support that. And those views can then influence how fast they grow and what type of growth they attract. So we really try to stay out of that viewpoint, because it's up to the community to decide for themselves, and instead just say, we got your back. Whatever growth you've got, let's work together. We'll plan the infrastructure needed to serve it, and you've got our commitment that we'll be there to ensure reliability and affordability.
Where did you grow up? What part of?
North Phoenix on Shea Boulevard, just east of the 51, and most of my time in the saddle was up towards Dynamite Road and then out even in the Rio Verde area.
It's so funny because I tell people about the changes I saw, because I took care of Penables in the mid-90s, 96, 97, 98. and we kept them at the Cave Creek Arena.
Yeah.
I love that arena.
Yeah.
I got on my
Terrific.
first bull in that arena. A lot of memories there. But I remember going up when it was still pitch black. There was nothing up there.
Yeah.
And we would have to cover the feed because the javelinas would just tear into the feed if we didn't cover it up with tarps. You've seen those changes I talk about seeing are nothing compared to what you've witnessed. What was that like for you growing up when this was still kind of a dusty little town?
Yeah, I think about it a lot. In fact, my kids are sick of me driving past places that used to be ranches that I'd ride at, and I point it out to them and say, well, that restaurant I used to herd cattle right there. They've heard those stories a number of times. On one hand, not going to lie to you, it's a little sad, right? Because I loved that Western culture, Western feel that to some extent has been urbanized. But at the same time, you still don't have to go very far to find that Western spirit in Arizona. And that part's really special. So I sort of take a bit of a pragmatic view. I think growth's inevitable. I think our state's done a tremendous job overall in supporting their growth in a manageable and sustainable way. I think it's a hallmark of what we've done well compared to other states. And as long as you can still find your pocket within the state that suits your own identity, whether it is a lake or river to go fishing, a trail to go hiking or horseback riding, or coming to one of the bustling shopping districts in a metropolitan area. You can find all that, not have to drive very far. To me, that's actually one of the differentiators for Arizona.
And what's unique, again, since we're talking about this unique part of Arizona, still seeing the herds of wild horses.
Yes.
People think we're joking when we tell them the stories. We were playing golf out at the course out at Wild Horse Pass. And there was a foursome of we used to play almost every weekend, and we were playing there. And there was actually a herd of horses that ran right down, I think it was the 16th fairway.
Oh, wow.
And across the green and completely destroyed the green. But to be anywhere in this metropolitan area and see a herd of wild horses is still, it's kind of cool.
It is cool. And, you still have quite a bit of free range in the state as well. I know it wasn't that long ago. We'd be driving down Dynamite Boulevard, and at night you'd have to watch it because there weren't lights along the road. And you'd have cattle running alongside the road, crossing the road.
Carefree Highway.
Yeah, Carefree Highway that way too. Not that long ago, and so you still don't have to go very far out to find that. But yeah, that's ranching and agriculture has been a big part of this state. I mean, obviously, cattle, one of the 5 C's.
Yeah, and it's interesting to meet people, and that's one of the great things I loved about the rodeo world was the ranchers and the farmers and the people that you meet and the stock contractors. Many of them were cattle ranchers. That's right. And to hear the stories about how they grew up and how difficult it can be and the challenges. We talked earlier about the heat, the challenges here that it presents to raise livestock, and especially if you're raising them for food, to keep them healthy in this environment can be a big challenge for people.
Yeah, it's tough. The desert climate in particular, to your point, is just not ideal, particularly in the summer, to raise livestock. And a lot of folks that have done it successfully over time, I think they found a way to migrate their livestock somehow out of here in the summer and then come back in the winter. And, my days nowadays is really around, I support a few organizations that do therapeutic horseback riding for special needs youth or first responders, military veterans with PTSD. And it's been a great way to, I'll call it, urbanize my passion for horses. And a lot of these facilities are located right here in the city. And it's pretty cool because, there's a lot of other big cities in the country that you'd never dream of finding barns and arenas right in the middle of town. And here you still find that. And oftentimes they're put to good use, like these therapeutic riding centers. And I just think, again, that's another example of how we still have that Western spirit, and it's pretty special.
There was one, I don't know if it's still out there, at Midwestern University.
Yes.
They have stables out there, and they had a program for veterans and helping people. And I don't know that people understand the therapeutic effect of just being around. I remember I was just there's a big difference between, for people that don't know, a redneck and a cowboy. Yeah. I was a redneck, but I really wanted to be a cowboy. I mean, I loved the romance of living that Western lifestyle. And I didn't completely, but there were 3 or 4 years where I took care of a pen of bulls, and we dewormed them and we took care of them, and I fed them every day. And I remember it was hard work. I'd work all day long and I'd go feed them every night, and I'd sit in the bed of my truck and just watch them eat. And I remember thinking I could just sit here all night and watch these bulls just wander around. And I don't know that people maybe I thought I was always strange, that was therapy for me to just sit there and watch them. And, it's just something incredible about it.
It is. It's hard to describe. There's just, a lot of people say it's a sixth sense that these animals have and that people can relate to it and it touches your spirit. I'm not smart enough to know exactly how it works, but I do know that I've seen many, many lives changed when they get to work with animals and livestock, particularly horses that tend to have such personality. And it oftentimes can just bring out the best in people and just lead them to paths in life that they otherwise wouldn't have had. I mean, I'm a testament to that. Look, I wouldn't have been where I'm at and had the privilege to serve our team had it not been for getting involved in horses. And I thank my lucky stars every day for that. Part of why I'm passionate about supporting some of those programs going forward is hopefully it'll open doors for other people too. But yeah, the livestock could be pretty special. We actually have a lot of investment leadership development within the company and developing people to be as good of leaders as they can, which helps develop then the next generation. Honestly, one of our leadership development programs is taking them out to horse facilities and letting them work with horses and learn about those nonverbal cues. It's not unlike you and I and anyone else where sometimes it's not what we say, it's how we say it. And that means how good are you at picking up at those nonverbals and developing a connection with someone, not by what you say, but how you say it and how you show up. And you can learn that pretty well with livestock and horses. And we actually teach our leaders how to do that.
And it's incredible to see people and watch the stress kind of wash away for them in a situation, which I think is the best when you bring people out for the first time and you can, even if it's just for an hour, to have them just focused on something like that, where you just watch whatever they came carrying, they set it down at least for an hour. I just love that.
Yeah, I do too. I think it's great, and it's also a little bit of a step back in time. My friends always used to say I was born 100 years too late. Probably was, but just to think about what life must have been like when, your mode of transportation, what also kept the economy up, was often dependent on livestock. And just to, live back in that moment for a little bit, but also develop a connection with an animal, it's pretty special.
Well, the symbol of America around the world, I mean, you travel internationally, I'm sure, a lot. They picture the cowboy. The cowboy hat is still the American symbol. As urbanized as we've become almost everywhere in the country, the world still sees us through the eyes of a cowboy hat.
That's right. Yeah, and I say nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that at all.
Yeah, you come into my house and there's a lot hanging up on the wall that symbolizes the cowboy, and most of it's centered around Western values and cowboy code of ethics, and I firmly believe that.
When you think about how you got to where you are, was it at any point that the plan, I know you said you just kept changing and more, but at what point did you think I would love the privilege of running this or leading this?
Yeah, I don't think there was ever a point, Mike, where I thought I want that specific role because, titles and sort of stature don't really mean anything to me. But I always felt this hunger and aspiration to carry more responsibility. I just didn't know how to translate that in a specific role. And so, a couple of common themes that always seem to carry with me. One is I would always yearn to gravitate towards the roles with the biggest challenges, or where a turnaround was needed. Maybe we were in trouble in a particular area and we needed to try to implement some sort of transformation or a high-risk project. I can't tell you how many jobs I took in the company where many people said, don't take that. That's a dangerous role. It could lead to bad things in your career. Or it's going to be difficult to succeed. And those are the ones I would run towards. And one of my philosophies all the time was, if I'm comfortable in a role, I'm not learning. And if I'm not learning, I'm not growing. And I'm too sort of ambitious from a learning and growth standpoint to ever let the grass grow too far under my feet. I want to constantly learn and grow. And the more you grow, the more you can make an impact. And so, as soon as I felt like I was comfortable in a role, I'd look for the next challenge and try to go tackle it. And over time, then you end up really honing your leadership skills. I remember one of the more pivotal moments in my career, someone at the company asked me, what's more important, people or results? And it kind of stunned me for a minute, and I'm embarrassed to admit it now, but when I answered, I said, well, they're both important. You can't pick one over the other. I'm here to tell you that's absolutely the wrong answer, but it took that conversation to make me realize it, because they said, well, Ted, if you're not clear about that, then you got some soul searching to do. And they were absolutely right. people are absolutely more important. And when you support people's growth and development, then you can achieve tremendous results. But I had to learn that a little bit the hard way early on. And when I started to adopt that mindset that my job every day is actually more about developing people, developing the capabilities within our team, and helping clear the path for them to do great work, two things happen. One, this becomes a whole lot more fun. And two, you realize that you can actually change lives through leadership.
Yeah.
And that's the most rewarding thing. Certainly turning on a new power plant, building a new transmission line, seeing a large customer like TSMC come to the Valley, prosper and grow, which is going to help our country tremendously. Those are all pride points. But developing the next generation of team members at APS that's going to help carry on the legacy of reliable and affordable power in our state, that's the prize. And that's really what excites me every day the most.
What's the old saying that they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care?
Yes.
And growing up, one of the things I loved about the trades, and I had no forethought. I wasn't thinking about a future. I really wasn't. I had a job, and someone offered me a job that paid more money as an apprentice on a job site, so I took it. Yeah. And I found out very quickly at 18 years old, I had absolutely no direction. And in 6 years, I had become the manager of a small company. When you said you find that passion, I found something I loved. I loved working with my hands. I loved seeing the results of my work at the end of the day. But I also liked using my brain.
Yes.
But I loved learning from people. Every owner of every company I worked for started out just like I did. Every electrician I worked for was a field electrician. They knew what I was going through, whether I liked them or I didn't like them. They liked me. But I learned from someone that had been there.
Yes.
So that mentor attitude was always there. Everyone I worked for, I learned on their dime, and I never forgot that. The mistakes I made, they paid for.
That's right.
And they taught me when I went into management, and they taught me how to bid and to collect money, and to, all of those things were taught to me at someone else's expense. And I'll never forget that mentoring attitude of learning. I still remember the principles of guys I worked for that were construction guys like me that made me believe if they could do it, I could do it. They instilled that in me. If I can do it, you can do it. It was an amazing attitude.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. Well said, Mike. And I know people that believed in me at a young age, and they believed in me more than I believed in myself. And it was because of their belief in me that made me feel like I can do things that maybe I didn't know I was capable of. And that mentor of mine, his name was Bill Stewart, who used to run our nuclear plant. If it wasn't for him believing in me at a young age, I would have never even considered this business, let alone believe in my ability to help be in any leadership position. And I just absolutely consider it so important to be able to do that for others. And equally as important is recognizing that if we do it right, if we're teaching the next generation how to learn and grow, like you said, and offer that mentorship and leadership to folks, then they'll know how to do it right for the generation after that. The trickle effect is amazing. The other thing, too, is, look, I grew up in a household where my folks didn't necessarily enjoy their jobs every day, and I saw firsthand how that comes home with you.
Yeah.
It doesn't leave 9 to 5, right? It affects the relationship you have with your spouse, with your kids, your overall well-being in life. Well, as leaders, if we have an influence on making that a positive experience for an individual or a negative one, your ability to make it a positive experience improves one's quality of life beyond just 9 to 5. It improves it for how they go home, the relationship with their loved ones, and it even then helps teach their kids what a good work-life balance looks like and what a good job satisfaction could look like. So, good leadership is incredibly powerful, and I'm super passionate about it.
Yeah, my mom raised 3 boys by herself, and she did what she had to do, not what she wanted to do.
Yes.
And her work ethic is the thing that I took with me the most, was just get it done. And I know you don't feel well, go to work.
Yeah.
But what was different for me was I had no intention of finding something I liked. I got very lucky in finding what I like to do. And then I found this business, and it's great here to watch young people come into this industry from, Cronkite School, have interns that then become full-time. You watch them become a better version of themselves that you saw in them the whole time, that they may not have had a clue that they were going to be that good at something. I think that's the best part. I mean, it's It's the only good part of getting older, I think, is watching them blossom and become a better version of themselves.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I also think I'm sort of like you. I just feel like I completely got lucky.
Yeah.
Falling into, this world and working in the utility business, which I love so much. But I think about the pressure we put on youngsters sometimes. Look, we're saying at age 17, 18, you got to decide then and there what you're going to do for the rest of your life from a career standpoint so that you know what school or college or trade to go into and pay a lot of money to support that. To some extent, it's a bit of an unrealistic expectation. Sure. My oldest is 25, and he struggled with that. He's a good kid, great character, graduate high school, and he was questioning what he wanted to do. And I said, look, I'm a big believer in continuing education, but I don't think that's the only answer. I love the trades. I love the service. As you get three choices. You go to college, you find a job, or you join the military. I said, if you go to college or find a job, my advice to you is find something that you're passionate about. Mm-hmm. That should matter more than anything else. And then, of course, if you join the service, I don't think you can go wrong. Just learn skills that you can take on with life. He chose joining the service. He's in the Army right now, and he's absolutely loving it. He never went to college, and I think that's absolutely okay. And he's learning and growing better than he probably would have in any other path.
It's interesting because watching that, I'm a big supporter of the CTEDs, the Career Technical Education Districts, and what they're doing with high school kids that are getting them hands-on training in multiple industries. I do a lot with EVIT in the East Valley.
Terrific programs.
Amazing programs. They have a broadcasting school, and last year it was named the best high school radio station in the country. So we brought a bunch of those kids down here to the radio station with their teachers, and they met our web department, and they met even salespeople, and they talked with broadcasters and people that they'd heard. And some of these kids are ones that are going to be broadcasters. I met some that said, I want to go into PR, and I'm doing this. But to hear a young person have a hands-on experience to be able to decide, is this for me or not, that experience alone is got to be life-altering.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's one of the things I like about APS. Of course, we have professional jobs, IT, supply chain, finance and accounting, et cetera. We've got a huge trade presence. In fact, the majority of our organization is made up of line workers, electricians, control room operators, engineers, planners, and our trade school and our program for developing folks right out of high school and taking them as a pre-apprentice and working them through their development. It is so much fun and rewarding to see these folks develop the skills and experience they need to succeed. And they go off and live an incredibly rewarding and fruitful life. And I just think that's a tremendous opportunity to be able to give folks that type of development and career path.
When you talk about mentoring now, do you choose people, like individuals, or do they choose you? Is it someone who's, I'm going to focus on this, or is it more of a mindset of growth and opportunity for someone to learn? What is the mindset for you guys?
I think it goes both ways. I think we all at the company believe strongly in mentoring, and oftentimes people choose you, and sometimes you identify folks that you say, look, I think there's some things I could help with. So it goes both ways. A lot of times what I find is the mentoring tends to center around getting folks to feel comfortable stepping outside of their comfort zone. Candidly, one of the common threads we see with women is that they tend to adopt a mindset of, I have to be fully qualified before I step into a new role. And it's the whole lean in concept. And so I find myself oftentimes encouraging them to say, no, you don't. You are capable of amazing accomplishments and capabilities. Lean in. It's okay if you don't know what it is you're about ready to step into. And then with some of our male colleagues or coworkers, it's about trying to get them to identify with where do you have strength and passion and what roles can you achieve. And so each person is individual. There's a lot of leadership articles around this, but it's really all about trying to just promote people embracing growth, embracing opportunity, feeling comfortable stepping out of their comfort zone, and really embracing challenge and opportunity as a means of just developing new competency and skill.
Just two things, and then I'll get you out of here. One of them is your reputation, you personally. This podcast, the idea of telling stories, Arizona stories, and really incredible inspirational stories. We've had great ones. Jerry Colangelo's been in here. The late Al McCoy has been in here. But when we are asking people, who should we talk to? There's been at least 4 people that brought your name up.
Oh, I'm surprised to hear that.
Really?
I don't think I'm that interesting.
Danny Seiden.
Great guy.
Had him in here. Name. Said you. The story's incredible. Person of character. Are you aware of the reputation you have, not just in your industry, but in town? You know, there are not a lot of people that go out of their way to talk about who a person is. They'll talk about what that person does. Are you aware of that? Is that something you're aware of?
Honestly, I'm not, and maybe it's partly, Mike, because I'm just not driven by that. You know, the fame or acknowledgement doesn't do anything for me. But if I know some way that I'm helping make a difference, then I'm plenty good with that.
But people say it's lonely at the top and it's a tough place to be and it's a cutthroat world. And once you're there, everybody wants to knock you off the top. But I've not heard one of those things about you. Everybody says that you're such a good person. And it's almost as if it's a surprise that you can be where you are. And Colangelo, to me, Mr. Colangelo felt that way to me. There's a guy that's accomplished so many things, but character is the center of everything he does.
I couldn't agree more. And I think you picked 2 good examples, Colangelo and Danny Seiden. I mean, both in my book have high degree of character. Colangelo, I mean, he's a legend in our community,
he
right?
is.
I mean, he brought us so much, and I don't think Phoenix would be where it is without his commitment and investment to the community. Look, to even be in the same conversation as some of those folks or others that you've had on the show, would have never thought that'd be the case for me. I just love our state. I love trying to make a difference. Staying grounded is super important to me. I've seen...
No pun intended in your business.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah, good one. You know, I remember early in my career, one of my favorite colleagues and I, we were looking at a chart once that showed as oftentimes as executives rise through an organization, their emotional intelligence declines.
Yeah.
And sometimes it happens just unintentionally. You know, people think your jokes are funnier all the time, or they agree with you because of your position, not because what you said is actually the right answer. Honestly, Mike, that's one of my biggest fears is I can't let that happen. I don't want that to happen. And so I try very hard to ensure that I stay focused on our people and that I recognize that I work for our team. You know, when a storm rolls through and we got outages, I'm one of the first to be out there on the street trying to get a set of eyes on what are our customers going through right now. Do our team members have everything they need? And is there anything I can do to help? It's not because I really have that much to be able to offer in that moment. Quite honestly, they'd all be fine without me there. But it's because I need to stay grounded and realistic about what our folks go through and what our customers go through every day and why we show up every day to be able to support those situations. And so, look, if I can have a career here to support Arizona's growth through one of the most unprecedented times in our history, where our grid right now is growing faster than it ever has before. Many would argue reliability has never been more important. If we can help shepherd through this era of growth, power Arizona's future, bring on TSMC in full form, power AI, and do it without missing a beat on reliability and keeping electricity affordable, I'll call that a win. And if people ever associate my name with it or not, doesn't matter. I'll know that I got to have some small part in that, and that'll be good enough for me.
So, last question. You brought up earlier, you don't let the grass grow under your feet very often, and you're always challenging yourself, stepping out of your comfort zone. What's next? What are those challenges for you right now, and what's next?
Yeah, I think, look, I got a long time here at Arizona Public Service, just stepped into the president CEO role, so look forward to many, many years ahead. We've got a big focus on building out the grid, so that's a huge part of it. We also have to build the next generation team. A lot of folks are going to be retiring at our company, so I'm very, very focused on that. And then just look forward to continuing to see our state prosper and grow. I think with this new role, it's gotten me out into the community more. You know, I chair the Arizona Chamber, on the board with GPEC, get to serve with a lot of nonprofits. And so I think getting more and more involved in the community is going to be a great opportunity for me too.
I appreciate the time. I've been looking forward to this conversation. Seeing you in passing and spending a couple of minutes is always fun, but to have an extended conversation, it means a lot. I know you're very busy, so to come and talk to us and tell the story is one I really do appreciate, and I hope we get to do this more.
I would look forward to it, Mike.
And you got to get me out to Palo Verde.
Well, we have to do that. I can't wait. And look, I feel honored. I know some of the guests you've had on this show. I've watched many of the episodes. They're terrific. You do a wonderful job. It's a privilege and honor to be sitting here next to you having this conversation, and really appreciate the opportunity.
It's a great story. I mean, you're growing up here, and then the story of leading this organization, like you said, it's such a pivotal time in Arizona's history. I think the whole thing is such a great, that you're at the helm is a great thing.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
All right. We do these Amazing Arizonans podcasts for this reason. Amazing stories of people right here in our valley. So when you think about the electricity, you think about the grid, now you know someone that's invested not just in his job, but in this state. It's a great story, and I hope you'll watch the rest of our episodes. Anywhere you find podcasts, just look for Amazing Arizonans. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching Amazing Arizonans, presented by Resolution Copper. Tap the button in the middle to subscribe to KTAR News.